Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of That Kind of Podcast.
Yay!
Season 3.
Yep.
I feel like we've aged considerably since we started this.
This season or this podcast?
This morning.
In fact, yes, that is true.
It's one of those days, but Dia is going to make
I
everything
bet.
better.
I am going to make everything better because this one's going to be fun.
Okay, good.
I told you last week it was going to be twisty, so it's a little twisty.
Yeah. So maybe we need to just make this the fun year. I mean, like the fun season.
Okay.
So
Alright, less heavy stuff?
less heavy stuff.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah. And next week, we're going to cover
Yeah.
Jonestown.
Okay.
Waco.
Just a little lighthearted for your Tuesday morning.
That's exactly right.
We are going to talk about Carolynne Watson and Julian Buchwald. Carolynne was 17 and Julius was 22 when this happened. They are from a very small country town. And
Hence the name. I mean, like...
Are you caught up on the name?
Yeah, what the name? I mean, like, that's just...
It's an intense name.
It's an intense name, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean...
Anyway, I won't give it anything away yet.
Okay.
So they were from small towns in Victoria, Australia. They had been together 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So do the math on that. She was 15, he was 20. But it was a small town, so we're going to say...
What year was this?
Or 2008 when this happened.
Ooh.
So, but it's a small remote town.
So we didn't know it. We don't know any better.
There might not be
Options,
yeah. They were together 2 years. They were very strict Christians, so they were saving themselves for marriage. Julian was in a much bigger hurry to get married, but Carolynne wanted to go ahead and graduate high school before she got married. So, but that was their end goal.
Right.
Was one day they were going to get married. So, in the spring of 2008, most of them say March or May, but right around in there. Julian invited Carolynne on a picnic date, a little romantic date by a romantic waterfall in his parents' property that is also very remote. It's about 2 miles square, so a pretty big area. They were going to be back at about 3 p.m. that afternoon. 3 p.m. came and went. It wasn't like them to not show up, but they weren't there. So Julian's mom started to worry and was either looking out or was walking the property, and they had a metal fence or a chain link fence. There's going to be a lot of ors because depending on, there's a lot of information about this, but some of it's pretty conflicting. So anyway, I'm just prefacing that. There's some ors.
Okay.
She was looking out, or she was strolling the property, and in their metal fence of
She was
some
riding
sort.
a horse.
Yes, they could have been.
Playing a thrilling game of hide and seek.
Yes. Waiting for her son to come home that she was worried about.
Marco!
That's what I do when I'm worried. I play hide
Julius!
Buchwald! So, anyway, she was able to find in their fence somehow there was a bottle with a note in it. When she pulled out the note was from a Satanic Cult, the Order of the Nine Angels, which is a what? You can't start laughing already.
I'm just like, notes in a bottle is the ultimate form of communication by satanic cults.
It might be. I do not have Satanic Cults ever contacted you. So
They're just strolling along the beach.
plunk.
Kissing it. See who it goes to.
They might have. But this particular cult is the Order of the Nine Angels. And it's a very intense cult. They focus on human sacrifice. It's not, it's truly like...
Yeah. It's the satanic of the satanic.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. It was from them, and they said partially, I'm not going to read all of it because the note was very graphic and very detailed about what would happen to Julius and Carolynne if the police were contacted. It was bad.
Yeah.
But the partial reading was, you bloody couldn't leave us alone, so your son and girl went walkabout. You get... Why are you laughing?
Are they pirates? You bloody well couldn't leave us alone.
They're Australian. This is an Australian.
Okay,
They say
I
bloody. And they went walkabout.
Winch, get me a beer.
We just lost all of our Australia audience right now.
Bring me some mead so I may use the bottle to send off a message.
Maybe that's what happened. I don't know.
So I haven't been contacted by a satanic cult, but I might soon be.
You might be.
I'm gonna come into the office one day. There'll be a bottle with a note. I'll be like,
damn it. They were right.
They were right.
All right. So, it partially read, you bloody couldn't leave us alone, so your son and girl went walkabout. You get Carolynne and Julian back when we finish our business in the area, but only if you behave yourself. And that had everything to do with don't call the police. So, Julian's mom, heeding the note's warning, immediately called the police. The police came out, took it very seriously, thankfully.
Yeah.
And they started a land and air search. They organized it over where they thought that the kids would be. But it was such a large area. It was such bad terrain. I mean, you're talking about remote bushlands in Australia.
And we all know what kind of animals there are in Australia.
Exactly. So this was not an easy area to search, but all of the community came out and was really trying to find these kids.
Yeah.
And so detectives interviewed his family to see if they had any run-ins with the cult or anyone like that, because why would they have this note otherwise? And his family never did.
Yeah.
They didn't know anything. They hadn't ruffled any feathers. They didn't have anything.
Yeah.
But Carolynne's family, 10 days before the kids went missing, had received a note in their mailbox. Same style of writing, same type of writing, same symbols on the note from the Order of the Nine Angels. And essentially it said, stay away or I'll make your life hell. And so detectives were assuming, because both families were such devout Christians, you're laughing again.
So, I'm just saying, so is hell really heaven for a Satanist? I'm gonna make your life hell. And they're like, hee!
Okay, I don't know much about Satanists.
You have free time? Let's figure it out.
No, I know, like, if you're talking about, like, the Church of Satan, I understand, like, isn't super... I think they chose Satan because they wanted to be catchy,
yeah,
but they don't really follow
heaven and hell.
Yeah, it's really all about me.
Yeah,
it's about me.
Yeah,
and well, no, it's not. Their belief is
everything,
not about Dia.
everything is making sense now.
If you go on Wikipedia, it says Dia under the occult. No, I think Satanists are more about themselves than anything outward.
Yes.
So that's actually a really good question, but I don't think they do.
I'm gonna make your life heaven. Yes.
Yes. No. So anyway, that's why police figured that they were being targeted. But Carolynne's dad had actually reported that note to the police, but at the time they took it as a prank, a really mean prank, and that was it. So nothing was ever done. So, after 48 hours, there was still no trace, and they started talking to other friends and family and widening their detectives' search. So, there had been vigils and prayer meetings held by the pastor. Mm-hmm. So, the detectives went to talk to the pastor, which, interestingly enough, he denied the satanic cult aspect. He said, I don't think that's right. I think they ran off to get married. And that was his take on it, because he had met with them beforehand and they had talked about how Carolynne was too young and they needed to wait. So he said, they probably just ran off and got married and that's what's going on. However, that wouldn't explain the notes, which everybody said is not written. The kids would not have talked like that. It doesn't explain why they only had, like, none of their clothes were gone. Their bank accounts still had money in them. They hadn't taken any extra food. They really just disappeared. And then the opposite of that is, but at this point, the Nine Angels hadn't shown up in that area.
Yeah.
There was no documentation of them. There was no record of them. They hadn't.
7 of them had been there, but not 9.
Right.
Yeah.
They were waiting on their last
The last 2.
Yes. They were on the slow train.
We're derailing. Yes.
But then on the other hand, well, then they could have, it could be a new chapter starting, and this was their way of, oh my goodness, you are full of it today.
Yep. I'm just thinking about how that recruiting thing would go.
Do they recruit, or do you find them?
I would think.
Do they need to recruit?
I don't know.
Because
I would think that there would be some recruitability.
Are there brochures?
Are there actually
offices?
Satanic Cult recruiters? Be like, it's like when we hire team leaders, and they're be like, we have scoured the nation. We have found
to find the best.
Beelzebub!
But if I'm right,
yes,
in my thoughts about it's all pretty egocentric, are they going to recruit, or do they already think, well, you have me, you have the best, who else do you need?
I mean, that's how I feel. That's what I tell recruiters when they call me.
I'm already the best. What can you offer me?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, boy, if you take this out of context, we're a pair
we might
right now.
we might be considered Satanists.
Oh, there you go.
I know.
Okay, so
Back on track.
Which the last 2 angels needed to get. But they weren't even in Australia.
Oh.
At this point. So if they were popping up, like they picked this remote little town in Australia to pop up in. So that part is a little funky too.
Yeah.
But it's not unheard of. They've got to show up somewhere. So anyway, almost a week went by and there was still no trace of them. And so they then moved their search to finding remains, because you're talking about the heat during the day, the freezing at night, like you said, all the animals.
The dingoes.
The dingo.
Dingoes.
Which they've actually shown that they think a dingo actually ate her baby. Have you seen that?
I have.
Yeah.
I have.
That's an interesting, maybe we should do that one.
That's a very good one.
Yeah. Yeah. The spiders, the snakes, I mean, just Australia in general is trying to kill you in every possible way it can. So,
yes.
Unfortunately, they moved to, just
finding the remains.
Yeah. As opposed to, rescue? It was no longer a rescue.
Right.
They also started thinking that maybe it wasn't the Satanic Cult, but maybe the abductors had used that as a ruse to get the detectives off their backs.
Yeah.
And away from who really did it. But 1 week later, the kids emerged way up north and on the side of the road, hundreds of miles from where they had started. They were picked up by a farmer, and they had bad sunburns, they had cuts, bruises, everything. They were in really, really bad shape. But they had escaped their abductors. And so they were interviewed immediately, because police were very concerned that these abductors were still
out
on
there.
the loose, and who would they be taking next? And was it, in fact, the Satanic Cult?
Right.
Would they be striking next? Because again, this cult that had kidnapped them was they're big on human sacrifice.
Right.
So this is what happened. On the drive, again, either to or from the waterfall, accounts vary, Julian had seen roadkill on the side of the road and wanted to check it out, which wasn't unusual for him. This was a normal thing.
And it turned out that his name was Jeffrey Dahmer!
Jeffrey Dahmer didn't like roadkill.
Yes,
If it had been a person, then maybe.
he did. That's how he got started, remember?
Oh, with getting the roadkill. Yeah, no kidding.
See them poking it with a stick.
Well, I don't know. But I also was thinking about it. I'm like, there's such varied wildlife in Australia, especially for being out in a remote area. I don't know. Maybe it is interesting to see what's over there today.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm making excuses. So,
okay.
He stopped, checked out the roadkill. Carolynne, the way he stopped, Carolynne couldn't see him when he walked out of the way, so she waited for a while, started getting kind of impatient, and didn't know that while he was kneeling down checking out the roadkill, he had heard footsteps, got hit in the back of the head, and knocked unconscious. All she knew was that he disappeared, and all of a sudden a masked man in black was running towards the car, and before she could even think or do anything, the attacker dragged her out, tied her up, covered her mouth in duct tape, and put her in the back seat of the car. Then proceeded to drive her 6 hours away. In the back of the car, dragged her out, cut her clothes off, but left her tied up and duct taped, and she could hear the sound of a shovel hitting dirt, presumably digging her grave.
Yuck.
So she did the only thing she could think to do at that moment, and that was to pray. And then her attacker just disappeared. So, sometimes prayer works. Okay? She heard a little while later Julian's voice crying out, so she cried out back to him. He was also tied up and naked, but he was becoming conscious after being knocked out. So he crawled his way to her, and together they were able to cut the ropes. He found the knife that the clothes had been cut off with, and so they were able to use that knife to cut the ropes off of each other. The attacker had left a sleeping bag and some food, and so they grabbed that and then left because they didn't know where he was. They didn't know when he was coming back, so they were basically barefoot and naked, no idea where they were out in the middle of Australia. They at one point ended up back near the campsite because they got disoriented of where they were going. And then this part varies. They either found clothes, they had a spare set of clothes in their backpack, or they found their cut off clothes and put those on, but at some point they became clothed in some way.
Okay. And
found a little more food, and so lived off of that and a little bit later. In some reports, it's said that Julian actually found a random backpack full of food and clothes. So, depending on the source.
Yeah.
So they were able to take police back to where that was. Police searched the area and found so much evidence. It backed up exactly what they were saying. They found the knife, the shovel, the duct tape. They found bits of clothing. They found rope. They also found the owner of all of those items.
Who was the owner of these items?
Julian. Yeah. Which begs the question, why would a kidnapper use all of someone's items who just happened to have a kidnapping kit with him? So how did the kidnapper get it? And they were a little suspicious because the wound on Julian's head that knocked him out was barely visible. You could hardly even see it. So how did he get struck so hard that he was knocked out? So once police had all of this and began questioning Julian a little more intensely, as far as now you're not the victim, now you're kind of looking like a suspect.
Yeah.
Julian folded so quickly. He admitted that he not only coordinated the kidnapping, but he was the only one that did it. There was nobody else involved.
Could you imagine the girlfriend?
I can't.
Be like, you are now going to be knocked unconscious.
Yeah. He had the dead animal, in air quotes, that he saw, was where he actually buried the kidnapping kit, the change of clothes to become the masked intruder. So he went, changed, and he ran and grabbed Carolynne, threw her in the back of the car, listened to her for 6 hours as he drove away, crying and pleading and begging for her life because she was sure she was going to get raped, killed, murdered, buried, never see family again. It also explains that 6-hour drive, everyone was looking for them in this area over here, and they were way over there. That's why nobody could find them. So why did he do it?
I can only imagine.
Because Carolynne didn't want to get married yet. So he figured if he could pressure her, because she was so scared, into marrying him and having sex with him, then he would get what he wanted. So kidnapping was the only way to go for that. And he did pressure her and said the only way that we can stay warm on these cold nights is to have sex. And it's okay in the eyes of God.
It's convenient because he has one sleeping bag.
Exactly.
Oh, that just like makes my head hurt.
Yeah. But it's okay because if they get married under the stars, it's like it's under the eyes of God and he is okay with all of this. And Carolynne never said yes to any of it. She turned him down every time.
Good girl.
Yes. Yes. So he never got what he wanted. And so at the end of the week, when he realized this isn't even working how I wanted it to, he was like, okay. Because it turns out the entire time, he had a map. He knew where they were at. He was purposely leading them around to keep her out there longer so she would feel more pressure. And she never caved. And the sad thing is, she said that after that ordeal, before she found out that it was him, she was going to marry him. She had every intention of it. She just wanted to freaking finish high school first.
Yeah, she was 15. She was not even a senior in high school. 17. Okay.
17. They started dating when she was
15. Okay. So that makes me feel a little bit better, but...
Yeah. All he had to do was wait 1 year, a couple more years, but he couldn't. So...
Moral of the story.
Yeah. Don't pressure... I feel like there's a lot of morals to the story.
Yeah.
So then, his story isn't quite over yet. Because he was charged with abduction on several counts and theft. And because Australia has different abduction laws than we do, there were several, but they got him on a few. And he was found guilty in 2009. When he was out on bail until his sentencing hearing, he tried to escape. He got a fake passport, dyed his hair black, and got out of the country. Most reportedly to Taiwan. But it didn't work when authorities realized what he had done. His fake tan and dark hair didn't fool anyone.
I can see him in line, and like the hair dye and the tan is like
dripping
running down.
Yes.
He has like a little mustache.
Especially if it's hot, and because it's tropical over there, so during the summer. And yes, so... he was detained when he was landed and extradited back to Australia, where he got 7 years and 3 months for kidnapping, and then 6 months for skipping bail, and he was not able to parole for 5 years.
So that's interesting that because he actually had stronger charges than than like rapists over here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's borderline. Granted, it's a horrible crime, but that's a pretty significant.
He didn't rape her.
No.
He didn't murder her. He didn't physically assault her. Yes, he threw her in the back of the car and wrapping her up, but he didn't beat her.
No.
And I'm not discounting
what it was horrible
because that was the horrific mental trauma you must have gone through.
Right, but like, can you imagine? Could you imagine like Brock Turner's judge, who's like. Well, it was emotionally scarring for her, but it could destroy this young man's life.
It could. That poor man, he's only 22. He has his entire life in front of him. And she should have just said yes. Can't you see that?
Oh, I can't see that.
Yeah.
It hurts my head.
Yeah. 7 years for what he did to her, which I say good.
Yeah. Could you imagine his parents, though? I just be like, dude!
Yeah. Well, they had the trauma that they went through thinking that their son is just gone.
Yeah.
No telling. Even if it's not kidnappers or abductors.
Or a satanic cult.
Yeah. The elements that they would be suffering under.
The dingoes.
The animals, any number of ways. It's like 100 ways to die.
Yeah. I like spiders. Like tarantulas are my jam.
Mm-hmm.
Snakes are my jam. There's some scary, scary stuff in Australia.
Well, it's all gigantic, too. It's not even like a normal size. If you saw a tarantula over there, it's not the normal size that we're used to. It's like
I would scream like a little girl. Hold on. It'll be like the water. It'll be like...
The floor shakes when a tarantula walks over there. Yeah. So they even had to go through all of that. And then after a week, hearing from police, look, it's no longer a rescue mission. We're just trying to find what's left of them.
Ma'am, a dingo might have eaten your baby.
Yes. Yeah. You're going through all of that. And then to have your son pop up and be like, I just really wanted to get laid. So, that is the story of Carolynne and Julius. Mostly Carolynne.
That was a good one.
So twisty.
It was twisty. And was fairly, I mean, like, I don't want to, it was lighthearted compared to a lot of the stuff we do.
Nobody died.
Yeah, nobody died. So, but man.
Although.
Gaslit the heck out of her.
Mm-hmm.
Poor thing.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what she has to go through to recover from that, because 17 is still very young.
Yeah.
And
trusting.
Yeah. How could you trust anyone after that? Somebody would say, do you want to go on a walk? And you'd be like, no. Oh, I have my GPS tracker with me.
Yeah.
I've got my tile.
Hey, check out that waterfall. No! Hey, is that some roadkill? Keep driving!
Go.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of victims, but thankfully everybody has come out alive, and it sounds like she had a pretty good support system around her.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure he learned. I'm hoping he learned his lesson after 7 years.
I would hope so. Here's the bad thing about it is sometimes I want to know the follow up.
Yeah.
But I don't want to give Google one more hit on that person's name.
Yeah.
So I don't want to do any follow up.
Can you go incognito? Go incognito mode.
Oh, Google still tracks that. They have to. And I don't want to give him any more
clout.
Yeah, than he has, but I am curious what the follow up to that is.
Yeah.
But I didn't look up any follow up to her because I feel like she deserves her privacy.
Oh yeah, 100%. And happiness.
Yes.
Hopefully she's like.
Yeah, because this was 15 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
So.
Okay. Well, that was a good one.
All right.
So we'll be back next week. It'll be my turn. I'll have to come up with something fairly lighthearted.
For a true crime podcast.
We'll find
that.
something.
Shouldn't be difficult.
No, not at all. So have a great week. We'll see you guys soon.
See you later.
Bye.